We've got another great story for today in the insightful tales. Hold on to your car keys for dear life as we delve into a story dealing with Emily's and car thefts. Just another day in the wild ride called life. Up first, when your parents think raising you is a financial investment. My parents took and sold my car and won't tell me to whom. What's the best step to take from now? First, some background. I no longer get along with either of my parents. I won't delve more into it than it's not reconcilable because of serious abuse. I bought a car when I was 16 and still living with them, and they believe that makes it theirs. The title and everything was originally in my mother's name, but it was transferred into my name for 3 years now. It is mine and only my car. When the family split, my parents tried to call in what they called debts of a minor, which they tried to convince me was a legal term, saying if I took my support away from them, then they had the right to recall all money involved in raising me. I went away for 2 weeks in September and left my car with my brother, who I still get along well with. He is still in contact with my parents. They visited him a couple of times while I was away, and on the last visit, they stole the keys to the car from him and drove off with it. My brother told me immediately, and I said I'd deal with it when I got back. It happened a few days before I was to get back. I went to my parents to get my car, and they said they sold it. The $8,000 they sold it for was to go towards debts of a minor, and they informed me I now have only about $80,000 to go before I've paid them off. I called the police immediately to report it stolen, and they seemed to prefer to listen to my parents who said the title was in their name. I have the title in my name, however. Advice from the police was to work it out between ourselves. Useless. So where I'm stuck now is I have no car, no keys to it. It's out there somewhere, and my parents refuse to tell me where it is. It's my car, and I can prove it. Who do I prove it to have it retrieved? Are the police right, and that I have to beg the people who took my car, my parents, to give it back? Is this a job for a lawyer or court, or escalating it with the police? I've never had to deal with the legal system before. Update. I went to the station in person and got a lot further with different officers who asked what happened before with the other officer, and rolled their eyes when I said his name. I have my brother fully on my side, and we both made statements. I've contacted my insurance. Now, let's check in with the community to find some relevant comments. Debts of a minor. You realize you have no obligation if you're older than 18 to financially pay them back, right? They can kick you out and cut off any monetary support they have for you, but you don't have to pay your parents back for raising you. Also, if they sold the car in your name and the title was in your name, go to the police station with that and prove that it's been stolen. Bring the proof. Also, if you do not have the title and it's in your name, you can obtain a duplicate via this website. Link provided. Alex replies, when I first left home, I realized very quickly that debts of a minor isn't a thing. I owe them nothing. The title is definitely in my name. I'll try again with the police with documentation at the station. A deleted user said, don't call the police station again. Go down there with the title and registration showing that the car belongs to you and report it stolen. I'm not entirely sure you have to mention that your parents stole it and sold it. The person who bought it without a title will be so and need to recoup their costs from your parents after this all comes to light. There's a chance your parents will be charged. Alex replies, except for the buyer, that would be the best possible outcome. Thank you for the comment. Is there any possibility of any fallout on me from the buyer? Say if it was proven I was careless with the keys, and that led to the whole problem? Hope it's not a stupid question. I'm not afraid to admit I'm really ignorant of the law and also paranoid about my parents and their actions. Wow, I'm sorry, Alex. It sounds like your parents missed the memo that the debts of a minor statute were filed under fairy tales in the legal archives. Maybe they're hoping you'd chip in for all those diapers and baby food. But last time I checked, parenting isn't a business venture. Selling your car out from under you, that's some next-level villainy. Parents are meant to be the guardians of our childhood, the protectors of our dreams. It's a betrayal of the highest order when those who are supposed to nurture us decide to sabotage instead. Parents aren't supposed to steal their children's belongings, whether it's a toy, a car, or even their sense of security. They're not supposed to sell off pieces of their child's future to settle imaginary debts or satisfy their selfish desires. Update 16 days later. Thanks for the replies. When I originally posted, all I needed was a more with it police officer. I went in person with all the documentation proving that my car was my vehicle and with my brother, and stated clearly that my car had been stolen and sold, and we both knew who did it. The officer I dealt with this time treated everything seriously and listened to both of us. I had my car back within 2 days. My parents had taken it and hadn't sold it like they claimed, but were renting it to someone they knew. The car was retrieved from the renter's house. I hadn't yet claimed it, so it was returned to me the day after retrieval. My mother has been charged, and I've also been questioned about my parents' drug use. I'm over the moon that what they did trying to rip me off has shown a light on more of their behavior. I'm still trying to gain clarity with my insurer about possible internal damage to the engine or transmission and having that thoroughly checked out, but that's beside the point. As a bonus, this was the last straw from my brother. He'd been still living under our parents' thumb, and this gave him enough reason to also cut them off and commit to acting against them. I have my car back and my brother back more than I did before. The fact that they got caught red-handed, priceless. But hey, at least something good came out of this mess. You got your wheels back, your brother got his backbone back, and your parents, well, they got a one-way ticket to the slammer. How about karma serving up some cold hard justice? What do you make of this? Do you have any horror stories like this? Share them with us in the comments below. Up next, this guy's ego is as big as the dent he left in Alex's bumper. Other people's children. This happened yesterday but is carried over into today. My son is learning to drive, so sometimes I'll finish work early and pick him up so he can drive home. Yesterday the parking lot was fuller than usual, and this minivan kept driving around looking for a spot. They finally decided to squeeze between me and the curb, adding up barely 2 inches from my passenger side mirror. Their child comes out, and this guy starts gesturing at me because there's no way anyone is getting in either of their cars from the passenger side. He rolls the windows down and motions for me to do the same. The moment I do, he begins berating me loudly and very aggressively, saying I should move from my spot so his kid can get in his car. Keep in mind, I'm in a parking spot in a small car. He is in this big minivan squeezed into this non-space. I just hold my window back up and ignore him. Then I feel a thump and look at my rearview mirror to see him walking back to his car. It legit felt like someone ran into me lightly. I didn't dare get out as I was already a bit intimidated, and the dude was a bully. After screaming at me to move for the past 5 minutes through a closed window, the guy pulls ahead, his kid gets in, and they leave. I get out of my car and go around to the back and see a massive crack in the bumper of my brand new car, right in the center of what looks like a boot print. This is my first new car ever, barely a month into my 2-year lease, and this happens. Get a quote of nearly $4,000 to fix the bumper as it needs to be replaced. It was kicked so hard that it broke some clips that held it on too, as this was the recommendation of the dealership as it was very loose. Unfortunately, as a lease car, this has to be fixed ASAP according to my contract. Go back to the school in the hopes that I can get some identifying info on the guy to file a report and recoup the cost through their insurance. We can see the front of the van, but not the back where the license plate is because of where he is parked, ironically blocked from my view by my car. Fast forward to today, I get to work, and my boss calls me into her office. There was a complaint made yesterday about how rude I was, and that I was most likely driving under the influence. My boss is awesome. She knows full well there's no way I would do any of that, so she just gives me a heads up and that's it. It was almost 10 a.m., and I just answered a call. It was him asking if disciplinary action had been taken yet. I interconnected my line to my boss's, so I had a witness, and the convo was interesting. He had no idea it was me, and I was asking for details from the encounter. He gives them, not realizing I filed the police report the day before. That wasn't likely to go anywhere as I had no license plate number or name, so I just got emailed the guy's name, address, make, model, and year of the vehicle and license plate number. I just got off the phone with the police. I don't think he'll be happy to see them on his doorstep. Maybe he should have just been happy with vandalism instead of also trying to get me fired. Entitled people suck. Alex has an update. He has been officially identified by police. Happy dance. After the police watched the video from the school, the potential charges are vandalism, harassment, slander, which is unlikely to stick as it has affected my reputation, I'm told. Mischief, uttering threats, child endangerment. I had an 88-year-old in my car at the time. I'll also be trying to obtain a restraining order given the harassment. I'm told not all charges may stick, but they are going to push the vandalism and harassment charges. We shall see. Police here are infamous for not doing their jobs. I'll update you when I get one. Edit. Apologies for formatting. Updating from the police station over mobile. Someone in the community had a comment. So not just vandalism, but harassment and slander. The guy just likes to pad his resume with all sorts of things, doesn't he? Vandalism. Check. Harassment. Check. Slander. Oh, why not throw that in for good measure, right? I mean, if you're going to be a villain, you might as well go for the full buffet of criminal charges. It's like this guy took a crash course in how to be the worst human ever and aced every lesson. I can just imagine a resume now. Expert in property damage, master of verbal assaults, and connoisseur of false accusations. But wait, there's more. Child endangerment. Oh, he's going for the gold in the terrible person Olympics, isn't he? I mean, who needs morals when you can collect criminal charges like Pokemon cards? And let's not forget his attempt at getting you fired. Talk about adding insult to injury. Like, hey, I already wrecked your car. I might as well try to wreck your life too, right? Well, I hope this guy enjoys his date with Karma. She's got a special place reserved just for him, right next to the world's biggest jerk trophy. Do you have a similar story? Let us know in the comments. And lastly, nothing revs up Alex's day like a good old-fashioned confrontation with an entitled neighbor, screamed at for building a special needs school. Here's a story from last season I thought might belong here. So I work in construction. I drive a transfer truck super solo for a paving company. On this day, we were hauling in foundation rock to build a parking lot bus stop for a new school. This is a project we were all excited to be working on. We were rebuilding a special needs school tucked away in a neighborhood that had been previously falling and disrepair. A big, beautiful new school with all the new technology and amenities money could buy. Super proud of it. People in this neighborhood were so happy. They would bring us out water, cookies, and coffee. Needless to say, every time I was put on this job, I was happy about it. On this day, I was in a super solo hauling 24 tons of rock per trip. Supers have this long, strong arm that comes down off the back to stabilize the truck and spread the weight out. Before getting inside the construction zone, that arm needs to be picked up, trails and raise up high before folded up behind the box. Being that this school is tucked back in a tiny neighborhood with low-hanging power lines everywhere, finding a spot to raise it without causing a ton of damage is a bit tricky. Lucky for me, I found a spot with no power lines for about 20 feet at the beginning of the street end. It's about 8:30 a.m. Most neighborhoods have noise rules for construction. No trucks before 8 and so on that everyone agreed on. I roll into the cherry spot I found and start to raise my strong arm, revving the engine a little. Takes me all of 12 to 15 seconds to raise the arm and my tag axles and be gone. I drive with my window open for air, and right about the moment I'm getting ready to release my brakes and go, I hear screaming. I thought someone was hurt, so I jumped out and ran around the truck to see her. Bleach blonde hair in a knot bun, stretchy workout pants, Nike hoodie, kids' canvas shoes, the whole nine. I'm in trouble. Don't park in front of my house, you piece of crap. Go somewhere else. Whoa, 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 easy. What's the matter? You don't have to scream, ma'am. Don't park here. You wake me up every gosh darn morning. You're blocking my driveway. I can't get out. We aren't even going to use that effing school. You're wasting money. Easy. You don't have to yell. We can talk. Sister, don't park here. You're blocking my driveway. I can't get out. We're not even going to use that school. You're wasting money. All right, sister, we're done. Conversation over. Then I started walking back to my truck, and she started recording me on her phone while following me after the nasty stuff she said. Of course, I'm calling the police and your job. You're getting fired, little girl. I'm 5'0" and maybe a $1.7 soaking wet. People like to point that out when they're mad at me for some reason. Have a good day, ma'am. As I was getting back into the truck, I heard her telling her phone that I had threatened her, so that was fun. She did call my job, and my boss told her to kick rocks because it was after 8 a.m., and I happened to be friendly to a fault, so her claiming I threatened to run her over didn't go very far. While I'm ashamed to admit I can be petty at times, I will say that after that, every time I came to the job site, I parked in the same spot and revved my engine higher and louder than I needed to. Someone from the community adds, that Emily should keep her trap shut. Where I'm from, it's 7 a.m. From that time on, work is allowed till 12, and again from 1300 till 2000. You are way too friendly. I'd tell her to find someone like her to scream at, but in not so nice words. Alex replies, yeah, you're right. I'm just not very confrontational. I mean, I can give people the business, but they have to push it. Ah, the classic Emily encounter, complete with all the drama and entitlement you could ever ask for. It's like a rite of passage in the construction world, isn't it? You haven't truly lived until you've had Emily screaming at you for simply existing. But hey, props to you for keeping your cool and not letting her get under your skin too much. I mean, who needs a confrontation when you can just rev your engine a little louder and assert your dominance in the most passive-aggressive way possible? Seriously, who does Emily think she is trying to lecture you about your job and your life choices? Last time I checked, construction workers were doing the Lord's work, building the foundations of society, while Emily sat at home complaining about her latte being too hot. So here's to you, my friend, for being the bigger person and not stooping to Emily's level. And next time she comes around with her entitled attitude, just rev that engine a little louder and remind her who's boss. What do you think? Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that notification bell before you leave. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's topic, so feel free to leave a comment. See you next time in the Insightful Tales.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. "I will do my best." Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. "Did you not hear what I said?" "I'm sorry." I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick? What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their inn. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.